So how does a gigantic empire, one that's been around for centuries, just collapse? And what rises from the ashes? Today, we're going to get into one of the most game-changing events of the 20th century, the Russian Revolution. Let's do this. First off, you got to get your head around just how massive the Russian Empire was. I mean, look at this. At its peak, it covered 1/6 of all the land on Earth. 1/6! And it was all controlled by one guy, the Tsar. So the big question is, how did something this huge, this powerful, just fall apart in a matter of years? Okay, so to get why this happened, we've got to look at what was going on inside Russia. Think of it like a giant pressure cooker. By the early 1900s, it was seriously about to blow. And it wasn't just one thing, right? It was this perfect storm of problems all hitting at once. First, you've got the guy at the top, Tsar Nicholas II, an absolute monarch with total control. But here's the thing, Russia was way behind the rest of Europe when it came to industry. That meant tons of poverty and just awful working conditions for most people. And then, the thing that really pushed it over the edge was World War I. Russia was getting hammered, suffering huge losses, which led to massive food shortages back home. The country was literally falling apart, and people were starving. But, the writing was on the wall even before that. Back in 1905, a group of peaceful protesters marched to the Tsar's palace. They weren't trying to overthrow him, they were just asking for better working conditions. And what was the response? The Tsar's soldiers opened fire on them. The day became known as Bloody Sunday, and it completely destroyed this idea that the Tsar was like a father figure to his people. Any trust they had, poof, it was gone, forever. So all that anger, all that tension, it all finally exploded in 1917. This is the year everything changes. And get this, it wasn't just one revolution, it was two. Let's walk through this crazy year. It starts in February. There are huge strikes, and the Tsar is actually forced to step down. A temporary government, they called it the provisional government, takes over. But it was super weak, and it made one huge mistake. It kept Russia in the war, so none of the problems went away. Then in April, this hardcore revolutionary, Vladimir Lenin, comes back from exile. And by October, his group, the Bolsheviks, just storms the government buildings and takes over, just like that. So who were these Bolsheviks anyway? Well, their whole ideology was called Leninism, and it was basically a really intense version of Marxist communism. See, Marx thought the workers would eventually rise up on their own. But Lenin, he was like, nope, that's not gonna happen. He believed the workers needed a small, super organized group of professional revolutionaries to lead them, to basically kickstart the whole thing and seize power for them. So how on earth did they get so popular so fast? Well, it really came down to this brilliantly simple slogan: peace, bread, and land. I mean, just think about what that meant to the average person. Peace, get us out of this horrible war. Bread, we're starving, we need food. And land, take it from the rich nobles and give it to us, the peasants. It was genius. It hit on everything people were desperate for. Okay, so let's talk about the man himself, Vladimir Lenin. He's easily one of the most important people of the 20th century, but his legacy is, well, it's complicated. So was he a hero who saved his country, or was he a villain who just created a different kind of monster? Let's break down the argument. So on the hero side, he did get Russia out of the war, just like he promised. His government also pushed Russia into the modern world. Literacy rates went way up, and women got rights they never had before. But then there's the villain argument. His takeover kicked off a horrible civil war. His Red Army was brutal. They executed anyone who disagreed with them, they crushed rebellions by peasants and workers, and they set up a one-party state where you could not speak out. And that system, it paved the way for someone even worse. When Lenin died in 1924, it left a huge hole at the top. And the man who stepped in to fill it, Joseph Stalin, would control the Soviet Union with an iron fist for the next 3 decades. So with Lenin gone, there was this massive power vacuum in the Communist Party. The brand new country he created, the Soviet Union, was facing a huge question mark. Everything depended on who would win the fight to take his place. And the man who came out on top was Joseph Stalin. He was a master political player, for sure. But here's a crazy fact. Even Lenin, on his deathbed, warned the party about him. He said Stalin was too hungry for power. Stalin even chose his own name. It comes from the Russian word for steel. And believe me, he lived up to it. And this right here tells you everything you need to know about how Stalin worked. His biggest rival was a guy named Leon Trotsky. Once Stalin got total power, he had Trotsky kicked out of the country and eventually assassinated. But that wasn't enough. He literally tried to erase him from history. Look at this. He had Trotsky scrubbed from official photos. That's how he thought. If you control the past, you control the future. So, with no one left to challenge him, Stalin kicked off this insane plan to drag the Soviet Union from a farming society into an industrial superpower, and he did not care what it cost. His big idea was something called the 5-year plans. Basically, the government set these ridiculously high goals for producing stuff like steel, electricity, and coal. Stalin was obsessed with the idea that the Soviet Union was decades behind the West, and he was determined to catch up in one giant, brutal leap. So here's how it worked. To get the factories running, he needed to feed all the new city workers. To do that, he forced millions of peasants to give up their small farms and join these giant state-owned farms. They called it collectivization. The government would then take all the grain to feed the cities. And here is the truly cruel part. The peasants who actually grew the food were not allowed to eat any of it until the government's crazy high targets were met. And the result of this policy? A totally catastrophic, man-made famine. This wasn't a drought, this was a choice. It's estimated that as many as 10 million people died. They were either executed or they just starved to death during this push to industrialize. 10 million people. Which brings us to a really tough, unavoidable question. Look, Stalin's plans worked. In a way, the Soviet Union did become a massive industrial power, a power that would be strong enough to help defeat the Nazis in World War II. But you have to ask yourself, was it worth it? Was that transformation worth the cost of millions and millions of human lives? All right, let's do a quick recap of the big points here. 1. The Tsar's government fell apart because of war, poverty, and just plain bad leadership. 2. Lenin and the Bolsheviks took over by making a promise everyone wanted to hear: peace, bread, and land. 3. After Lenin died, Stalin used pure terror to grab power. And 4. Stalin's 5-year plans did turn the USSR into an industrial giant, but it caused a horrific famine that killed millions. Okay, time for a quick check to see if you were listening. Question 1. What were those 3 magic words in Lenin's famous slogan? And last question. What was the #1 goal of Stalin's 5-year plans? What was he trying to achieve for the Soviet Union? Awesome. Thanks for sticking with me through this.